if I look at what's the strongest dragon decks, I think Priest and probably Warrior. So, but at the same
Hmm.
time, maybe it's not a popular pick. Maybe it's just a deck that's out there and it's not as strong as, say, Shaman, which only loses Crackle.
Well, going into our first match, I have seen that Trump has done like the full analysis on, what all the popular decks are, what cards they're losing, and kind of, moving forward, what can we expect? So I know he's done a lot of this analytical research, and I feel that, I think no player is going to have like the perfect deck list for this tournament because they haven't really been able to practice it adequately as you would for any other tournament. But I do kind of have my faith in Trump bringing the correct classes. I don't know if that makes much sense. So
Sure.
I think through just looking at every single available deck out of what we had now, taking the cards out from Naxxramas, from GVG, I think with what's left, he's playing the most complete decks. So that's why we see here the aggro shaman. Aggro shaman is very much like druid, one of those classes that loses almost nothing with the exclusion of those two sets.
Oh, all right. So we're already starting to see the beginnings of how it's formulating. Like we said, Aggro Shaman still exists very much intact. They lose Crackle as one of their burst options, but they can just play a little bit more board centric or even just use more chargers. That's always an option as well.
Hmm.
So we're hopping on Trump's POV. He is the Shaman player, and he's going to start things off with Sir Finley, looking for opportunities to get the burn in, but he doesn't get the most obvious one. There's no Hunter Hero Power. There's no Druid one. It's not even Life Tap. And instead, he chooses the Reinforce Hero Power, which just seems to be a solid pick. You agree?
It's a pretty solid pick. I feel like the reinforced hero power does better than the regular shaman hero power, so I think this is a step up nonetheless. But the shaman hero power pumping up, RNG Stoneclaw totems turn after turn after turn after turn against warriors, one of the most frustrating thing when the warrior can't use its weapons to actually remove the threats that it needs to. So I think overall this is a plus, but some of the turns are not going to play out quite as well because of the lack of those taunts.
Yeah, that's a really good point because the warrior can definitely destroy aggro by in the very early game using these weapons to remove a lot of the minions. And outside of the very early game, the shaman deck doesn't really want to be playing minions past turn 4 or 5. That's not going to change when the very core cards of GVG and Naxxramas rotate out. They're still going to want turns 4 to 5 to be playing burn, Doomhammer into more burn and hopefully drawing to those right card combinations. So Eloise being able to remove the board this early on is pretty big. She prioritizes removing the Leper Gnome here. And Trump, instead of feeding more into the War Axe with his Knife Juggler or Abusive Sergeant, chooses the Hero Power and play a little bit slow.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. I think the knife juggler is much more valuable. You're very frequently facing this situation when you're in like an arena environment where your opponent has like a weapon and you can play into it, but you're going to run out of cards before you kill him. So at the same time, you know that your opponent, even with a good weapon, is going to make desperate plays. So I think there's a decent chance that Eloise will still kill something with her war axe this turn, even though it doesn't seem like she needs to. There we go.
Yeah, there it is. And Fierce Monkey, a card that's flown still like under the radar a lot. I know a few players did like it. Life Coach, for example, really liked the Fierce Monkey Warrior and even brought it to big premier tournaments. What's your opinion on the card? Do you think it got a lot better because we don't have as reliable taunts as we used to?
Oh, it's a
Early
lot better in the standard format because we don't have minions that have to die 3 times. It just it's kind of like the boxer card. Like he's got everything that you really need, and he just doesn't do so well against those like cheater minions that you have to kill 3 times.
Yeah, I got you.
But in like a fair battle, the monkey is quite fierce.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
I actually really like the monkey card too because it has many funny translations across languages. Plus, it has some of the best voice acting, which is a pretty underrated facet of Hearthstone.
Yep.
Trump's gonna go ahead and try to just load up the board once again. He's got some okay tools right now to like make a small kit for pushing aggro, but still, if you can just stabilize, ooh, Eloise doesn't get any dragon synergies though with the Blackwing Corruptor.
One turn,
that's pretty unfortunate.
one turn earlier, Trump used the rock biter instead of the 50-50 chance on the abusive, and I feel like those are indicators that Trump still feels like he's in an even or somewhat comfortable position to win this game. Usually, if you're completely out of the game, you would take risks like that. So even though Trump doesn't seem to be doing all that well in terms of the aggro game here, it appears that he is still in a comfortable spot.
Yeah, I would agree because now that he hit more draw, like it's one of those scenarios as well as you look at Warrior being at 26 health and there's an Armor Smith out, but if the board is not really dealt with and if Trump picks up very efficient ways to remove the board and Eloise still doesn't draw a dragon with her Dragon Warrior deck, it's one of those things that it just continues to snowball and the damage from the board gets very strong because it's repetitive damage over and over. The juggle here, unfortunately, not going the way I think Trump wanted initially. He wanted a very clean removal of the Armor Smith first, and then now has to pick and choose how he wants to go about this of killing the Armor Smith.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to, dude.
Use the reinforcement, just go for the juggle?
Yeah. I really feel like
the shock is too valuable otherwise.
Well, it looks like he's just going to use it.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because if the juggle lands on even the face or the 2/2, it felt like it was in a really awkward and bad spot. Oh, that's so interesting. King's Defender. I was not expecting this card either.
Who needs Death Bites when you can just use King's Defender?
It sure beats Ogre Warmaul, that's for sure.
Well, actually, with good RNG, it doesn't.
Ah, well, okay. That is true, but when you're playing things like Fierce Monkey, that extra charge could be pretty huge as well.
That's true. We're so used to like the 2 durability weapons when it comes to board control that having that 3rd durability, it's like you don't know what to do really. A weapon with 3 durability is so much more frustrating to play against. Still no dragon, but he's got to make the play here, or she's got to make the play.
No worries, I knew exactly what you meant. In this scenario too, even though, like you said, there's no value in the battle cry effect, you still just need to play a minion. And it's one of those things too where, Warrior's gonna pretty soon be able to flip the switch. I mean, Gromash is a legitimate threat if you end up using it as removal.
You have to.
Or if he picks up a legitimate dragon to start comboing stuff.
No, I think you have to go Gromash right now.
Let's see. 2 Overload. So in the worst case scenario, and you often look at Doomhammer being that case, then that's still 12 damage. You're at 20. That's still okay, and you even have Bash to climb back in it. I mean, is this the point where Eloise even starts turning the game around and maybe putting Trump on the clock?
Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. That's a lot of damage. All right, so we're overloaded for 2. We need 6 next turn. So you can overload 2 more. Is that going to work? If we do 7, it would be a total of... No, it looks like it won't be.
I wonder.
Trump does not have a 2-turn lethal here, even if Eloise gains no armor next turn.
Right.
So this is a very tough
complicated too. So then, do you play the removal game? I mean, it's not exact. This is exactly why something like having a hero power, which adds more damage immediately, might be the difference maker of pushing you over the edge, because that Paladin hero power doesn't translate into a lot of impact at the moment.
I think what you have to do is just lightning bolt the 5/2, play a dude, and go face.
Yeah, and pray that your opponent doesn't have like some way to directly clear. But I mean, I don't know. Like at this stage, I wonder if Eloise even put more anti-aggro tools like Revenge in her deck. It might realistically be, because Dragon Warrior just wants to continue to control and use high impact minions.
Revenge is a very powerful card, especially against unsuspecting players. Once players start playing around it, it suddenly becomes terrible. But in this type of format, I think with so many things up in the air and so few actual known answers to things, it is the perfect card to include in your deck.
It would be pretty cool in inclusion. Eloise is also in an interesting spot here, because if she attacks face with Gromash because she wants to start putting the Shaman on the clock, I believe she'll be 1 damage off lethal the following turn because Azure Drake and Bash is a total of 4 damage on top of the 15. So that would put the Shaman at 1 HP. So, if she wants to use Bash now versus just hero power and take it a little bit slower, the reason why you can use Bash is because you're anticipating picking up something else to play with your mana, so you're trying to be as mana efficient as possible.
Well, I like this play. Looks like Trump's got to go Doomhammer in here.
But, the nice thing is that for Camp Eloise, the Rockbiter #2 has been used already. So that's one thing that you don't have to respect, so to speak, unless there's some weird random thing to give plus attack that I'm not thinking of.
Well, right now Eloise is actually dead unless she draws a way to gain more than the 2 armor that she can from her hero power. Yep, Trump's got it. There's no way Eloise can seal out the game. I don't think there's any 0 drop that the Azure Drake... Oh yeah, could have been a target dummy, right? Oh no, that's GVG!
Yeah, it's just a little bit short of the damage, and again, it's like all these little small things do end up mattering. Once again, though, the Shaman just barely able to edge out the game, and that's a pretty big deal. Like, being able to just shut down this Dragon Warrior and get the aggro Shaman out of the way, because when you anticipate your opponent's lineup, you just want to get as much of an edge as possible. So just by the hair of his chinny chin chin, Trump takes game #1 over Eloise.
Yeah, often in the regular Conquest format, when you lose a game with a deck and you have to play it again, it's not really too big of a deal. It sometimes can actually lead into you cornering out like a specific deck or something like that. But in this environment where so few things are known, you don't know what's in their deck. You don't know what their tech cards are. You don't know what kind of surprise cards they have. Any deck that loses is going to have a much harder time actually winning the second game, because every deck in this whole tournament has that surprise factor that makes it what it is. And with the surprise factor gone, you have that ingredient missing. So I feel like, as opposed to regular tournaments with regular Conquest formats, in this one, you actually get punished a lot for losing early on. Because, Trump knows that Eloise is playing Dragon Warrior, knows some of the cards in it, knows what to play around, knows all this stuff the next time going into it. And the next time going into it is right now. Looks like it's going to be Dragon Warrior against some form of Zoolock.
Yeah, it's like classic Zoo from back in the beta days. You don't have access to a lot of convenient cards like Haunted Creeper, Nerubian Egg, Implosion. Those are some really big cards that can swing the board tempo and really start to build dominant board position. But, you still have some pretty good cards that from, like In-Gang Boss being one of them, Dark Peddler being another one from League of Explorers. So it doesn't feel like they lose too much. Oh, big time draw. Once again, Fiery War Axe right on the top of her deck on turn 2. And I like the observation that you made, Krip, about the more that Trump knows about the deck, the better he's equipped to mulligan correctly and be very good against it. But I mean, right now it's looking like, even though Trump has this information, it's just his curve is so strong that I don't think he even necessarily needed it. The Zoo's just going to play very linearly. Like, I just want to build a very dynamic and strong board. But the nice thing is, if Eloise has a Brawl, it's like, when you Brawl as a warrior, sometimes 3 or 4 minions come out of it, even though you're trying to clear everything but 1 minion.
Well, the reason that you'd play Brawl is just because you'd have to kill minions so many times. You'd often have to attack a minion with Death Rattle and then Brawl, or the opposite way around. So I feel that with most powerful Death Rattle minions going out in the future standard block, that Brawl might not be as required. You can probably get away with other form of board clears. I think something like Baron Geddon to be even stronger. I could play Revenge in some of my cheaper Control Warrior creations, and it does seem to work pretty well. The 12 HP margin seems to get 0 respect from what I've seen on ladder.
Yeah, I know what you mean too. Just because people are playing around the Deathbite Whirlwind, they're playing around, sometimes even directly Whirlwind itself, but Revenge is the 3 damage AoE is such a big deal because Warrior, a lot of their quality of their minions can survive that Revenge, but a lot of the opponent's aggro can. Interesting here move by Trump. Looks like he wanted to trade the Divine Shield, which is really powerful against Warrior. Oh no,
Yeah,
he actually didn't
just
do the
go
trade. It looked like
phase.
he was going to, but
I think there's a case for both, but Trump has shown a lot of confidence in his zoo game so far. But I still feel like going face is a little bit better. I think you generally have more options when you put a warrior on lower HP. You also have to keep in mind that oh, there is the brawl there. And it is usable with the coin, but I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a better play. But yeah, I feel like doing damage to a warrior's face, you got to take like the arena strategy here. The main strength of a warrior is he has so efficient and such tempo removal with weapons, and the more face damage that you do, the less of that you have to play around. And with warrior, with this deck featuring the 3 durability weapon with the King's Defender rather than a Deathbite, means more and more hits that the warrior has to take on face.
yeah, also a good point too. Ellie's gonna remove the 2/2 here, and looks like it's just gonna bash as well to remove, even bashing the Imp Gang boss and creating a couple of extra token imps, so that the board is loaded up with more 1/1s. I guess in anticipation of potentially more minions flying the board, she can brawl next turn.
Wow. I think I like the Dark Iron here. Same damage as the Doggy, and you don't really want to tap when you draw Doomguard. I think if there was no Doomguard draw there, the Direwolf plus tap may have been better.
Yep, definitely agree here. There's still no still no direct need to overextend. Eloise going for a brawl. There's a 25% chance the Dark Iron survives. This ends up being slightly above average case here.
Still favored for Trump here. And Trump's going to push for another 7 damage. Eloise is on 4 HP.
Yeah, not looking
I don't see
very
how this
good.
is going to happen.
She doesn't have an activator for the execute. Revenge would be pretty good off the top.
We just have to keep in mind that I feel like while she has a lot of good answers, if she ever falls behind, it's so difficult to come back on the board and gain life in an appropriate way. With Shield Maiden out, with Anti-Keelbot out, you're so limited on how you bump up your HP after you've actually started the recovery process. And it seems that might be a bit of a weakness. And we see Trump ahead 2 points to 0. Eloise has only revealed her warrior deck, but Trump does have that druid, and we talked about it. Druid doesn't really lose really anything. I mean, I think anything is the closest way to talk about it. So we see a warrior deck that's broken down a little bit against druid, which is just so powerful.
Yeah, Druid is still extremely explosive, just like you said. They don't lose anything for Force of Nature Savage Roar. The biggest thing they lose is the Pilot Shredder and Dr. Boom, which have very sticky and very strong board presence with the combo damage. However, I am interested in the variations of Druid. So, for example, if you're anticipating a lot of aggro in this format, again, because you're missing Sludge Belcher and a T-Keelbot and Zombie Chow, then you're probably more likely to play things like a Darnassus Aspirant, which the more aspirants you have, the better the Warrior matchup does get, just because it's early game that's easy for Warrior to remove. So, I think there's still this like weird floating range, right, where sometimes Warrior can actually be decent against Druid, as long as Druid gets like not that great of a start, and Warrior can get off to a very good start. It's not an unwinnable matchup. It's just very tough in the mid stages of the game. You don't even have access to cards like Shield Maiden anymore as Warrior, because that was a GVG card. And Shield Maiden is one of the most impactful cards, because it not only gained you life, but it also was a 5/5 body to contest Druid stuff.
I think the main problems... oh, wow, this Darnassus is going to get obliterated by the Naxxramas champion if it gets played out this way. You'll be absolutely right on that sense. But I always felt that in the Druid versus Warrior matchup, the Warrior needed either Shield Maidens to bounce over the threshold of Force of Nature Savage Roar, or Belcher. Belcher was also... the loss of Belcher doesn't really affect too many things, because there are other taunts in the game, there are other options. but particularly against Druid, the breakpoints on the HP pool of a Belcher stop the combo completely in its tracks, and
Yeah.
I think that is a really big loss for Warrior in this matchup.
But the Warrior does have a couple other taunts that's not normal of what we are accustomed to seeing. The Fierce Monkey, for example, also the Twilight Guardian. The Twilight Guardian is statted just enough to make it very annoying for Druid to get past. 6 health is definitely not convenient at all, given their type of removal. And
But it can't be played right now. That's the issue.
That's true.
I mean, you lose 2 Dragon activators, and it doesn't activate itself.
Yeah,
I mean,
it seems like the worst play you can make right now.
Yeah. I feel like Eloise just has to trade the board and probably play the other Alistraza's champion.
I'd probably keep the monkey like alive here, and instead of trading the Alex Strasser's charge, just because it's just, you know, you want more damage onto the board in case your opponent plays Druid the Claw or something else. And Trump can take it very.
You'd have the same amount of damage next turn.
That's true, the Blackwing Corruptor. But, you know, Trump takes a very slow approach because he doesn't want his Emperor Thorzen to get killed very easily. And it's one of those things where, I mean, if you're Eloise, you're just going to command the board position, and Druid's also taking a lot of damage with follow-up charge minions on the Warrior side to potentially swing this.
I wield the power.
Well, the Darnassus does absolutely nothing, just as you predicted.
But it's kind of like what we were saying. If the Warrior can take initiative, and you know, now Eloise is hitting the perfect dragon synergies. This is in contrast to game number 1, where she had almost no dragon synergy until the final moments of the game. It almost certainly doesn't matter at a certain threshold what Druid does, because Druid is in the same position. It's not like it got better at removing the board at all. In fact, it got slightly worse at impacting the board if you take out cards like Dr. Boom. So I'm still really liking the position that Eloise is in right now.
Yeah, she's kind of winning a little bit more and more. It's like she has like an extra stat point over Trump's Druid board every turn. So it does absolutely seem that way. We see the swipe draw, which is possible, the spell damage buff off the Azure Drake, but that still doesn't. That's still like 1 spell damage short of what you want.
Yeah, because it's a 5/2 swipe, and they're at 6/3 right now, so very inconvenient. And execute for more tempo. I mean, it depends on what she also draws off the Azure Drake, but I can't really imagine anyone. I guess maybe Shield Slam would be only 4 damage.
No, I think this game is basically over. We also have to keep in mind that with the exit of Dr. Boom, at least in like the 1 stage past meta, which we're probably what we're seeing right now in the tournament, BGH is probably not going to see any play in this tournament as a result. So something like Gromash is going to be such a big problem for the Druid to deal with.
That is a pretty interesting observation. I mean, Dr. Boom was one of the most common reasons why you put Big Game Hunter in a deck. And once again, like we keep mentioning, if you're anticipating a lot of aggro decks, or even Druid decks, to be honest, they don't have many targets for Big Game Hunter. So it's pretty valid if you want to, take out Big Game Hunter and use that extra card for consistency in your deck. Completely viable option, I think. So Eloise here has... Well, she picks up the Fierce Monkey so that King's Defender actually gets an extra charge. Pretty convenient draw here, I'd say. Let's go face.
Ooh, do you want to go face? I guess so. You're running kind of low on cards, and it doesn't look like you'll be drawing much else soon enough. So, yeah, putting that lethal on the board there definitely seems like a good one. Trump gives some respect to the damage push here. Plays the Ancient of War. That puts him at exactly 1 HP.
That second Ancient of War, though, that could be pretty big.
Oh, no. Can't do it. Chad is probably spamming lethal.
Yeah, an 11 mana lethal.
Yeah. I mean, that's close enough to 9 mana. I'm sure you could pull that off if you're a professional Hearthstone player.
She just needs to draw Innervate, I think, is the key here.
Actually, I think she just needs to draw Bash. I think she actually has lethal if she draws Bash. Slam,
Oh,
execute,
right.
bash, and then
Slam.
3.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put it past any player to bring a few obscure cards. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of a big fan of the Argent Horse Rider in any deck in this format because it does remove things without Death Rattle, and things without Death Rattle don't spawn 1/1s to kill the Argent Horse Rider. So I could see that being played in any deck in this format. I could see Kurkon Elite perhaps being played. That's a bad card.
Yeah, it's just funny because it's like another weapon here that she doesn't need for a while. That's that second Ancient of War though. That can be backbreaking.
Well, how much damage is this? Let's give some credit to the damage here. Each Savage Roar is 6, so it's 6 plus 5. That's
20.
17 plus 8. It's 25 damage. Trump's gonna have lethal next turn.
Oh, you
insane.
mean you mean the Ancient of War being played?
Yeah, if he plays Ancient of War here, Trump is threatening lethal, and Eloise cannot stop it with her current hand. So Eloise has to get lucky with a card here, even though she was dominating the game up until last turn in such a big way. Savage Roar does Savage Roar things. Oh, no dragon!
Wow.
Looks like this is
That's
going to be a
it.
Trump sweep.
A 3-0. And you know that Emperor Thorson being able to hit that second Savage Roar too was really big because like say you didn't have that Druid Claw, that would have been just the key to ending the game here. Man, that's pretty unfortunate. You can't really do anything from this position as the warrior because you have no activator. And here you get to see directly like, you know, if something was like Death Spite, you know, Eloise had the chance of hitting face twice with this weapon, which would have been the 2 damage difference of killing the Druid, or even having an activator for Gromash. Like,
Death Spite would have been straight up lethal last turn, because Death Spite would have comboed with Execute to kill the last Ancient of War, and it would have activated Gromash to do 10 face damage. So, Death Spite versus King's Defender was just proven to be absolutely inferior in this game already.
Yeah, the extra charge here didn't matter at all. You know, the third charge not making a big difference. So that's going to wrap it up. Assuming Trump sees the lethal. Now, you know, I completely respect Trump enough, but you know, he also has proven me wrong a couple of times on this.
Yeah.
All right, you got it. I mean,
Well,
that is
10,
lethal.
10 damage Savage Roar is pretty easy play to make.
There it is. So Trump's going to move on in the winner's bracket, and once again, despite having a bad start, is able to really rock this Dragon Warrior, which can't really finish it out. And you know what? We kind of brought up, or you know, I'll take responsibility. I brought up Dragon decks as one of the things that was kind of mentioned, but you know, I guess it's just not as consistent. Plus, there's also really weird cards in the deck as well, like the Draconoid Crusher. I wasn't really expecting that at all. Not really sure. Yeah.
I think you actually swayed me, even though it was absolutely crushed, and your theory was not proven at all. I think when Standard actually goes through, I do think Dragon Warrior has a lot of those tools, and with some Blizzard intervention on possibly a few cards, I could absolutely see this deck seeing quite a lot of play. So even though it did not get demonstrated, my faith has been restored to some reasonable degree in the Dragon Warrior.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe there's hope. We'll have to see as Blizzard continues to fill the holes, but the biggest hole right now is the one probably in Eloise's heart. She's 0-3 and immediately sent to the loser's bracket. She's not eliminated, but she will be playing that game off stream while we move on. In the meantime, we're going to get ready for our second match of the day. It's Amnesiac from Team Archon, the young 15-year-old prodigy, versus Tice, the European regional champion from last year. I want to give a shout out to the Curse Network for being able to support this event and putting it on, as well as Hearthpone. Check out all their cool stuff over at Geekfeel as well, as they are also supporting the event and making this possible. We're going to take a few minutes to get ready for our second match of the day, so don't go anywhere. When we come back, more action here at the Curse Trials. Stay tuned.